"Sir, your yacht will explode," little girl said to the millionaire. The words hit William Montgomery like a slap across the face. He froze on the marina dock, his hand still gripping the rope he was about to untie. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wooden planks, and the gentle sound of waves lapping against boats suddenly felt too quiet. He turned slowly, his eyes falling on a small girl standing just a few feet away. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with messy pigtails and dirt-stained sneakers. Her face was dead serious, no hint of a joke or game in her expression. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your yacht will explode," she repeated, pointing directly at Ocean's dream. "Today. If you take your family out there." William felt his heart skip a beat. Behind him, on the pristine white deck of his $1 million yacht, his wife was arranging a picnic basket. His teenage son and daughter were laughing, arguing over who would get to steer first. They had no idea what this strange child had just said. He forced himself to smile, shaking his head. "That's quite a story, little one. What's your name?" "Anna," she said, her voice trembling now. "Please, sir. Don't go on the water today." William looked back at his family. They were already settled in, ready for their perfect Saturday adventure. The weather was beautiful, the yacht had just passed its safety inspection, and they'd been planning this trip for weeks. This had to be some kind of prank. Maybe the girl had seen too many movies, or perhaps older kids had put her up to it. There was no way a 10-year-old could know anything about his yacht that he didn't. "Thanks for the warning," he said, patting her head gently. "But we'll be just fine." Anna's face crumpled with disappointment, but she stepped back without another word. As William untied the final rope and climbed aboard, he couldn't shake the image of those serious brown eyes. The girl had seemed so certain, so afraid. But that was impossible. His family was counting on him for this trip. The yacht was perfect. Everything was ready. What could possibly go wrong? Within hours, William would realize that sometimes the most unbelievable warnings come from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, those warnings are the only thing standing between your family and disaster. As Ocean's dream pulled away from the dock, William tried to push Anna's words from his mind. The yacht's powerful engine hummed beneath his feet, a sound that usually brought him peace. Today, it felt different somehow. His wife Elizabeth spread out their lunch on the deck table, her movements graceful and practiced. She had done this hundreds of times before. The white yacht had been their weekend escape for 3 years now, a floating palace that cost more than most people's homes. "Dad, can I take the wheel?" his 16-year-old son called out, already reaching for the controls. The boy's excitement was infectious, his smile wide as he gripped the steering wheel. "Not yet, Ethan," William replied, keeping his hand steady on the controls. "Let's get to open water first." His daughter sat on the cushioned bench, her long hair whipping in the salt breeze. At 14, she was becoming more interested in her phone than family trips, but out here on the water, she always seemed to come alive again. The marina grew smaller behind them, and William felt his shoulders begin to relax. This was his world. Out here, away from business meetings and phone calls, surrounded by endless blue water and his family's laughter. Ocean's dream cut through the waves like a knife, her sleek white hull gleaming in the morning sun. Every piece of equipment was top of the line, every safety feature installed and checked regularly. William had spared no expense when he bought her. "Look at those dolphins." Elizabeth pointed toward the starboard side, where a small pod was racing alongside them. The children rushed to the railing, their earlier argument about steering completely forgotten. This was why they came out here. these moments of pure joy, away from the pressures of their busy lives. Millionaire CEO, William had built his fortune from nothing, investing in tech companies when others thought he was crazy. Now, at 52, he could afford anything his family wanted. The yacht was proof of his success, but more than that, it was their sanctuary. "Can we go faster?" Ethan asked, bouncing on his toes. "Sure thing," William agreed, pushing the throttle forward. The yacht responded instantly, picking up speed as they headed toward their favorite spot 20 miles offshore. But even as his family laughed and pointed at the passing scenery, William couldn't shake the memory of those serious brown eyes. Anna had looked so scared, so certain. How could a child know anything about his yacht? He checked the instruments again. Everything looked normal. Fuel levels good, engine temperature perfect, all systems running smoothly. The yacht had just passed its annual inspection 2 weeks ago with flying colors. Yet something felt off. Maybe it was the way Anna had pointed directly at Ocean's Dream, not at any of the other boats in the marina. Maybe it was how she had known his family was already on board. "William, you're frowning," Elizabeth said, moving to stand beside him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," he lied, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about work." But it wasn't work that was bothering him. It was the growing feeling that maybe, just maybe, he should have listened to that little girl. 2 hours into their journey, the Montgomery family had found their rhythm on the open water. The coastline was now just a thin line on the horizon, and they were completely alone with the endless blue sea stretching in every direction. Elizabeth had taken over the wheel, her steady hands guiding Ocean's Dream through the gentle swells. She loved these moments when William finally relaxed, when the stress lines around his eyes softened and he remembered how to smile. "Mom, let me try steering," their daughter begged, tugging at Elizabeth's arm. "I'm old enough now." "Ask your father," Elizabeth laughed, nodding toward William who was adjusting the sail lines. "He's the captain of this ship." The family had fallen into their usual weekend routine. William tinkered with the rigging, Elizabeth kept everyone fed and happy, and the kids took turns pestering both parents for more freedom and responsibility. Ethan had claimed the bow as his personal lookout spot, lying flat on his stomach and pointing out every fish and bird he spotted. His enthusiasm was endless, his voice carrying over the sound of the engine and waves. "Dad, there's a whole school of fish down there," he called out. "Can we stop and try fishing?" "Maybe on the way back," William replied, but his mind was elsewhere. Every few minutes, he found himself scanning the horizon, checking the instruments, listening to the engine's rhythm. Everything was perfect, exactly as it should be. So why couldn't he shake that feeling of dread? Anna's face kept flashing in his mind. The way she had stood so small and determined on the dock. The absolute certainty in her voice when she said those impossible words. "William, you're doing it again," Elizabeth said, catching his distant expression. "Stop worrying about whatever business deal you're thinking about. We're supposed to be relaxing." He nodded and tried to focus on the moment. The sun was warm on his face, the sea breeze carried the perfect amount of salt spray, and his family was happy and safe. This was exactly how their Saturdays were supposed to go. Ethan had moved from the bow to the stern, now hanging his head over the side to watch their wake spread behind them. The boy had always been fascinated by the water, just like his father. "Dad, something smells weird back here," Ethan said suddenly, his voice cutting through William's thoughts like a knife. William's blood turned to ice. "What kind of smell?" "I don't know, like gas or something. It's really strong near the engine." The words hit William like a physical blow. Anna's warning exploded back into his mind with terrifying clarity. "Your yacht will explode." He moved toward the stern, his legs feeling weak. As he got closer to the engine compartment, the smell hit him too. Sharp, chemical, unmistakable. Fuel. "Everyone stay calm," William said, his voice tight with control. But inside, panic was rising like a tide. How had Anna known? How could a 10-year-old possibly have predicted this? Elizabeth noticed his expression and moved closer. "What's wrong?" "We need to check the engine room. Now." The family's perfect day was about to become their worst nightmare. And somewhere back on shore, a little girl named Anna was probably wondering if the nice man with the yacht had listened to her warning. Would you ignore a child's warning? Comment yes or no below, we read every response. William was about to discover that sometimes the most important voices are the smallest ones. And sometimes, ignoring them can cost you everything. William's hands shook as he opened the engine compartment hatch. The smell of fuel hit him like a wall, so strong it made his eyes water. Below deck, in the cramped space that housed Ocean's Dream's powerful motor, a small puddle of gasoline gleamed under the overhead light. "Stay back," he warned his family, his voice tight with fear. But Elizabeth was already behind him, peering over his shoulder at the growing pool of liquid. "How bad is it?" she whispered. William knelt down, his expensive polo shirt getting soaked as he traced the leak to its source. A fuel line near the engine block was dripping steadily, and the hose clamp that should have held it tight was hanging loose. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, examining the clamp. "These were all checked 2 weeks ago." But there was no time to figure out how it happened. The fumes were building up in the small space, and any spark could turn their luxury yacht into a floating bomb. Anna's words echoed in his head, "Your yacht will explode." "Everyone get your life jackets on right now," William ordered, his captain's voice cutting through his family's confused questions. Elizabeth moved fast, grabbing the bright orange vests from their storage compartment. "Kids, put these on. No arguments." Ethan's face went pale as he struggled with the straps. "Dad, are we going to sink?" "We're going to be fine," William lied, shutting off the engine. The sudden silence felt worse than the mechanical noise. Now they could hear the fuel dripping, each drop like a countdown timer. Without the engine, Ocean's Dream began to drift with the current. They were 20 miles from shore, alone on the open sea with a yacht that could explode at any moment. William grabbed the radio with trembling fingers. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Ocean's Dream. We have a fuel leak and need immediate assistance." The Coast Guard's voice crackled back through the static. "Ocean's Dream, this is Coast Guard Station Harbor Point. What is your position?" William read off their GPS coordinates, his voice steady despite the terror coursing through his veins. The dispatcher's calm questions helped focus his mind. How many people on board? Nature of the emergency? Any injuries? For people, fuel leak in engine compartment, no injuries yet, William reported. But we need help fast. Understood. Coast Guard vessel is en route. Estimated arrival 30 minutes. 30 minutes felt like a lifetime. Elizabeth had taken charge of the children, moving them to the front of the yacht, as far from the engine as possible. She kept her voice calm, even cheerful, but William could see the fear in her eyes. "It's like a little adventure," she told them. "We'll have a story to tell when we get home." But William knew the truth. They were sitting on a floating time bomb, and any small spark could end their lives in an instant. The fuel fumes were getting stronger, making him dizzy. He grabbed some clean rags from the supply box and carefully soaked up the spilled gasoline. Every movement had to be gentle, deliberate. No sudden motions, no metal against metal that might create a spark. Working as quietly as possible, William tried to tighten the loose clamp with his bare hands. The metal was slippery with fuel, and his fingers kept slipping. Sweat dripped into his eyes, mixing with the chemical fumes. "Can you fix it?" Elizabeth asked softly. "I'm trying," he grunted, finally getting the clamp to grip. The dripping slowed but didn't stop completely. It was a temporary fix at best. Above them, seabirds circled the drifting yacht, their cries the only sound breaking the eerie quiet. The sun that had seemed so perfect earlier now felt hot and dangerous, its heat making the fuel vapors even more volatile. 25 minutes later, the sound of a powerful engine cut through the silence. The Coast Guard cutter appeared on the horizon, its red and white hull a beautiful sight against the blue water. "Thank God," Elizabeth breathed, tears streaming down her face. The rescue team worked with practiced efficiency, their voices professional and calm. They threw lines across to Ocean's Dream and slowly began the delicate process of towing the damaged yacht back to shore. "No sudden movements," the Coast Guard captain warned over the radio. "We need to keep this nice and steady." The journey back felt endless. Every wave, every slight bump of the boats against each other, sent William's heart racing. The fuel leak had slowed but not stopped, and the danger was far from over. His family huddled together at the bow, watching the coastline grow larger with each passing minute. They were alive, but barely. And somewhere back on shore, a little girl named Anna had somehow known this would happen. How had she possibly predicted their near-death experience? Safe on solid ground, William couldn't stop his hands from shaking. His family was alive, but the questions burning in his mind wouldn't let him rest. How had Anna known? What had she seen that he had missed? The marina bustled with the usual weekend activity, but everything felt different now. People walked past Ocean's Dream as she sat in the repair slip, not knowing how close their lives had come to ending in a ball of fire just hours before. William found himself walking the docks, studying every face, looking for answers that seemed impossible to find. Near the fuel station, he spotted a familiar figure in work clothes. The man was about 60, with weathered hands and grease stains on his shirt. William recognized him as one of the dock workers who had been there that morning. "Excuse me," William called out. "I'm the owner of Ocean's Dream. We had some trouble today." The worker looked up from coiling a rope. "Oh yeah, heard about that. Coast Guard brought you back in, right? Name's Jenkins, by the way. William Montgomery. Listen, there was a little girl here this morning. About 10 years old, pigtails. She warned me about my yacht. Do you know who she is?" Jenkins' face brightened. "That'd be my Anna. Sweet kid, but she's got quite an imagination." William's pulse quickened. "Your daughter? She saved our lives today." There really was something wrong with the yacht. "Wait, what?" Jenkins set down his rope, his expression growing serious. "Anna told you about the yacht. She said it would explode. I thought she was playing, but she was right. We found a fuel leak." Jenkins scratched his graying beard, looking confused. "That's strange. Anna doesn't know boats. She just likes watching them come and go. Could she have heard something? Seen someone near my yacht?" The older man's face darkened. "Well, now that you mention it, we had some trouble here last week. Had to fire one of the guys who worked maintenance." William leaned closer. "What kind of trouble?" "Guy named Pete Morrison. Been drinking on the job, showing up late. But when we let him go, he got real angry. Started yelling about how he'd make the rich yacht owners pay for treating workers like dirt." A chill ran down William's spine. Did he have access to the boats? Sure did. That was his job, checking fuel lines, engine parts, all that stuff. William's mind raced. Where's Anna now? I need to talk to her. She's at home with her mom. But mister, if Pete really did something to your yacht, we need to call the police. Within an hour, the marina was crawling with investigators. They found Pete Morrison's fingerprints on several fuel line clamps, not just on Ocean's Dream but on 3 other luxury yachts as well. The man had spent his final days of employment sabotaging the boats of wealthy owners, loosening connections that would fail hours or days later. The detective in charge shook his head as he showed William the evidence. This guy was systematic. He knew exactly how to make it look like normal wear and tear, but timed to fail when the boats were far from shore. He could have killed dozens of people, William said, his voice hollow. Your little girl probably saved more lives than she knows. If we hadn't caught this now, those other boats would have been next. Anna had overheard Pete muttering threats near the yachts, not understanding what he meant but sensing the danger in his words. Her innocent warning had stopped a madman's plan for revenge. The truth was finally clear, but it raised an even bigger question: how many other disasters could be prevented if people just listened to the small voices trying to warn them? The next morning, William walked slowly toward the small house behind the marina where Jenkins lived with his family. His legs still felt weak from yesterday's terror, but he needed to see Anna again. He needed to thank the little girl who had saved his family's life. The house was simple and clean, with a tiny garden where Anna sat on the front steps. She was drawing with colored pencils, her tongue sticking out in concentration. When she saw William approaching, her eyes went wide. "It's you," she whispered, setting down her drawing. "Are you okay? Is your family okay?" William knelt down in front of her, his voice thick with emotion. "Anna, we're all fine because of you. You saved us." She looked down at her hands, suddenly shy. "I was scared you wouldn't listen." "I almost didn't," William admitted. "I thought you were just playing a game." "But you weren't, were you?" Anna shook her head seriously. "I heard the angry man talking near the boats. He was saying bad things about the people who owned them. Really bad things." "What exactly did you hear?" Anna picked at the edge of her drawing paper. "He was fixing something under the boats, and he kept saying he was going to make them pay. He said the rich people would be sorry for treating him bad." "Did you understand what he meant?" "Not really," she said quietly. "But he sounded so mad, and he kept looking at the pretty boats like he wanted to hurt them. It felt wrong." William's heart ached thinking about how this innocent child had carried that burden, not fully understanding the danger but brave enough to act anyway. "Anna, do you know how many people you saved? Not just my family, but other families too. The police found out that man damaged other boats as well." Her eyes grew round. "Really? Really? You're a hero." Anna's cheeks turned pink. "I just didn't want anyone to get hurt." Jenkins appeared in the doorway, watching his daughter with pride. "She's always been like that," he said softly. "Can't stand to see anyone sad or scared." William reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small anchor charm. "This belonged to my grandmother. She always said it would protect sailors at sea. I want you to have it." Anna's eyes filled with tears as she touched the tiny anchor. "It's beautiful. You have the heart of a true sailor, Anna. You watch out for others, even when they don't listen to you." As William stood to leave, Anna tugged on his sleeve. "Mister, will you promise me something? Anything?" Next time someone tries to warn you about something, please listen, even if they're just a kid. Share this incredible act of courage. Someone in your feed needs this story today. William smiled, remembering how close he had come to dismissing her small voice. I promise, Anna. I'll always listen. Sometimes the biggest heroes come in the smallest packages, and sometimes the most important warnings come from the most unexpected places. Today, Anna is 15 years old and captain of her high school debate team. The scholarship fund William created has grown into something bigger than anyone imagined. It now helps dozens of children whose parents work at marinas across the country, giving them chances they never would have had. But the real impact of that Saturday morning goes far beyond money or education. Marina workers nationwide now have new protocols for reporting safety concerns. Yacht clubs have started programs where experienced captains teach children about boat safety, turning young observers into extra sets of watchful eyes. The story of the little girl who stopped a yacht explosion has become legend in coastal communities. Parents tell it to their children as a reminder that every voice matters, no matter how small. Children learn that speaking up about something that feels wrong isn't just brave, it can save lives. Millionaire CEO William still takes his family out on Ocean's Dream every weekend. But now he has a new tradition. Before every trip, he asks his crew, including any children on board, if anything looks or feels wrong. He's learned that intuition doesn't require a college degree or years of experience. Sometimes it just requires the courage to speak up. The Montgomery family survived that day because a 10-year-old girl trusted her instincts and found the strength to warn a stranger. Her small voice carried more power than anyone could have imagined, proving that heroes don't always wear capes or carry badges. Sometimes they wear pigtails and carry colored pencils. In a world that often dismisses the young, the poor, or the powerless, Anna's story stands as proof that wisdom can come from anywhere. The next time someone tries to warn you about danger, whether they're old or young, rich or poor, remember Ocean's Dream. Remember Anna. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and turn on notification for more heartwarming stories.